All right, good morning, friends. Time for the hands-free drive to work because it's illegal to hold your phone and it's unsafe as well. So this morning I have two quick props I want to show you while I'm stopped at a stoplight here. One is a candle, one is a box of tacks. So just have this in your head as we continue to talk because it's going to be important let me tell you what we're kind of thinking through this morning. I want you to be able to have this on your drive to work so you can just hit play and listen as you ride in, because until you change the way you think, you won't change the way you decide. Until you change the way you decide, you never change the way you act. So if we want to be successful at work, we've got to start with the way we think. So this morning, remember this candle and this box of tacks as we talk on our hands-free drive to work. So there's a guy named Sam Glucksberg. He's a research scientist at Princeton University. Sam Glucksberg, he did the classic candle problem. This is something that was been around before him, but they would take this candle, and I've actually done this. I did it at, I was doing some leadership training for a basketball team not too long ago, and I put that candle in the middle of the table and put that box of tacks beside it, and I said, I want you to take this candle and fasten it to the wall in a way that when you light the candle, no wax will get on the ground. And so we thought through that problem together, and that's the candle problem. Sam Glucksberg would give it to two different sets of people. And to one set of people, he would tell them they were the control group. Some of you guys have heard this before. So one group of people, he would say, you're the control group, and he would say, we're just going to tell you, you do the problem at a normal speed, and we're going to set by your group how fast the normal person does it, and then we're going to gauge other people from the normal. And then to the second group, he told them he would give them an incentive. He said, I'll give you $100 if you finish before the other team. And so the two groups didn't know they were doing it in a completely different way. What's shocking and surprising by Sam Glucksberg's findings, and he repeated this over and over again, what's shocking is that over and over again, the control group finished faster than the incentive group. That's surprising to all of us because think about this. I asked this question 1,000 times. So many of you have asked this question too. But why do you work? Stop just for a second. Answer that question out loud. You're driving to work, nobody's around. So why do you work? What came to mind? What came to mind? How many things that you just thought of were actually incentives to work? How many things that you just thought of, was it to provide for my family? I work so that I can provide for my family. I work so that I can have fulfillment. I work so that I can get money, I can get paid. I work so that I have enough money to do what I want to on the weekend. All of those things are ultimately incentives to work. But when I ask, why do you work? Nobody ever says, almost never, to meet needs. To meet needs. So almost nobody ever says that. We always talk about the incentives to work, and I'll get back to the needs, but I just want to think about this with Sam Glucksberg's research. If the people who are doing the controlled work, just thinking about the work itself, are going faster and being more productive than the ones thinking about the incentives to their work, how does that shape the way we should look at our work? How does that shape the way we should think about our work before we do it? How does that shape the way we should think about the incentives to work? And I think what Sam Glucksberg's research proves is that when we work for incentives, when we motivate ourselves with incentives, often we're less productive than we would be otherwise. And I know that's shocking. I know everybody in the world's like, nah, if you give people an incentive, they work harder. But what Sam Glucksberg found is that that's not true. So, if that's not true, if we have to stop thinking about the incentives to work, what do we think about before we go into a problem? Because we're going to hit a problem today in our work. No question, you're going to have a hurdle to jump over today. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to get tired. So how do we motivate ourselves? How do we steer ourselves through the weeds of work when we're not supposed to say, well, if you work hard, you'll get money. If you work hard, you'll get recognized. If you work hard, you'll just feel good about yourself. If those incentives are actually decreasing our productivity, then what do we tell ourselves? how do we motivate ourselves? And here's what I believe it is. I think what we've realized, what we've tried to do is we've tried to make work about the incentive instead of the work itself. But if you think about this, every ounce of work that you do today, every ounce of work that I do today is absolutely to meet a need. A met need necessarily precedes a profit or an incentive from that work. Let me say that again. A met need necessarily precedes a profit or an incentive for work. Because think about this, where does the incentive come from? Until you meet a need with your work, you don't get the incentive of money. Until a customer sees your work as such a value that they want to pay for it, then you can't, there's no way you can create money unless you meet a need. If today you sell a product and you say, here's a product that you need and I want you to buy it, and the person, their client says, yes, I will buy it, they don't buy it because you need money or you need to take care of your family. They buy it because they perceive that they need that product. So a met need necessarily precedes any incentive that you get from work. A met need necessarily precedes any incentive that you get from work. That's really what I want you to think about today. Today, when we're working hard, again, it doesn't matter if I'm trying to influence somebody to think differently. It doesn't matter if I am, a physician or a nurse, and I'm trying to get somebody to take on a new plan of action for their care, or if I'm teaching someone a new idea, or if I'm driving from one area to another, making sure that anybody's load is moved where they need it to go. All of those things that I'm doing are not working so that I get time off or so that I get paid. All those things are because somebody needs the actual work that I'm doing. So here's the question. If that is the actual case, if necessarily a met need precedes any kind of incentive or profit, then why don't I go ahead and accept that? You can't just trick the process. You can't say, oh, well, I'm going to tell myself I'm meeting needs, but really, I know if I meet needs, I'll ultimately get profits. No, you can't do that. But, however, often if you go for profit, if you go for incentive, you get neither. But if you go for the met need, you actually get the met need, and when you meet that need, there are profits and incentives that come back to you. Again, you may say, come on, man, that's not a lot of difference in your thinking. That's just a little difference in your thinking. Well, thank you for admitting it. It is at least a little different. And what's true about a little different is over time it makes a big difference. If I start out right now and I go to from my home in Claremont to my office in Gainesville, then if I'm only 10 degrees off over a short period of time, I won't miss my office by that much. But if I start from here in Gainesville and I go to Amman, Jordan, the first place that I ever taught some of these concepts, in a structured environment, in Amman, Jordan, if I was 10 degrees off there, now I'm miles from my destination. Why? Because I practiced over time. I missed the mark a small amount early, but over time, that small amount in the same direction makes up a massive difference. So again, I appreciate you thinking that this is not much different than working for incentives, but over time, I think you'll see there are massive difference in the way you end up over a week, over a month, over a year. So this morning, let's do it. Let's motivate ourselves. Let's steer ourselves by trying to meet the needs of the people around us, meet the needs of the customers and clients that we serve and the community we serve, instead of thinking about incentives and profits. Man, I hope that helps you steer yourself through the weeds of work today.